What's up, Knucklehead? I am Lupine Fiasco, and this is your daily FaB gameplay. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the jungle. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I'll talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now compared to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like the upcoming US Nationals and, most importantly, walk away with that shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the deck I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaBery deck link available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you access to the DFG Discord and the shiny cardboard Talishar card back. At higher tiers, your name will appear in every DFG video. You'll get bonus DFG content every week, and there are even more benefits to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Now, let's talk about our sideboard and about our game plan. Prism is certainly not the hot illusionist that she used to be. Enigma has taken the stage as the shiny new toy that illusionist players are experimenting with, but she is still floating around. She is still a hero that we need to be aware of. My understanding is that she has a better matchup against aggro decks like Katsu and Zen, so there is a good number of players that will bring her despite Enigma having released, and our Prism strategy remains the same as it was back in Heavy Hitters. You know that I am a disrespecter of Gambler's Gloves. I've never liked it in the Prism matchup because even with it, I hate rolling scabskin leathers. I am extremely risk averse. To me, leathers is a 3-block piece of equipment that every once in a while says use this if you would otherwise lose the game. But I do not like relying on it as a game plan. Instead, I play very defensively into Prism. I am very patient. I block almost every Herald. I am not afraid to use my armor to block out a Herald of Erudition, in addition to putting a Phantasm Popper in front of it, and that seems to work for me, so it is what we are going to do here. Our Prism strategy does have us using Sash as a defensive tool, as well as an offensive one, as going over the top of Prism's blocks to clear out angels, or even just deal a ton of damage, is usually very good. We are boarding out our Bear Fangs and our Cast Bones for the simple reason that they are not poppers. We want to make sure that we can pop Heralds early and often, though we're not bringing in Clash of Might because it doesn't have Go Again. And while we are running over 60 cards, we are at a slightly fat 62. All of the cards in our deck, for the most part, are poppers, have Go Again, are blues, or are Bloodrush Bellow. We are paying special attention to our super poppers in Smash Instinct and Swing Big, as they are our only attacks that can pop Herald of Triumph. Very important, Prism is running a lot of them, and the 7-power Heralds are tough to cover with just cards from hand or armor, especially if we want to do something on our turn. Us going first in this matchup, having lost the die roll, is honestly where I would want to be. The only thing to consider for your turn 1 is you want to end it with an action point so that you can clear out any auras that Prism plays on your turn. Those auras are likely going to be Genesis, Merciful Retribution, or possibly Parable of Humility. and Genesis being the most important one to kill, but Merciful is up there as something that will let Prism build Soul and tutor Figments, even if you are triggering Phantasm. For the most part, we are just racing, playing defensively where it's necessary, but at a certain point you can flip the script, take your pivot, let Prism get her Figment if it means cracking in for 20 to 30 damage. Prism only has 32 health, so depending on the power of your turn, you might be threatening lethal as early as turn 2 or 3. We're going to submit deck. We are going to see what exactly the Prism plan looks like, and if we can get the win against our new old illusionist. A few things to note as we are determining how we are going to open the turn is that our Prism, yes, she is on Luminaris, but she is also on Empyrean Rapture and Goliath Gauntlet, which means that she is very likely not playing the Arclight Sentinel Tome of Divinity plan that most Prisms are. She's on an aggressive Heralds plan where she wants to be throwing big Heralds, tutoring Figments, flipping them into Angels, and using those Angels less as a way to high roll, as she would with Soraya, Herald of Erudition, and more as sink below. So she is trying to outvalue us. She is trying to throw 2-card 11s. Problem with that is we have a bunch of poppers in our deck, and we have much better defensive armor than she does. And if she isn't playing at instant speed, suddenly our flesh bag gets much better. Looking at our opening hand here, we could just pass the turn, but I really don't want to. I want to take advantage of Prism potentially having non-blocks in her opening hand, because even if she isn't running Genesis or Parable or Merciful, at the minimum, she has Figments in her deck and they may be in her opening hand. So the first thing I want to do is throw this Wild Ride, pitch and run Roughshod. At a minimum, we make a Might, and we still get to end our turn with an action point. And depending on what we draw a discard into, we might just keep going. So at this point, Prism blocking with equipment and giving a full card, not even a blue, to leak damage makes me think that if we claw swing big, we are going to deal a ton of damage. At minimum, if Prism has 2/3 blocks in her hand, she can block 6 of the 11 damage that we're going to deal, and we leak 5 over. And in my opinion, that is better than starting with an Arsenal. Because she pitched a yellow, she cannot play a Soul Shield with floating resources. Yeah, we're just going to keep going. And we are going to see if we can leverage this into a ton of damage. Prism having 2 non-blocks in the opening hand leaves her at 23 to our 40, and we even draw into a Blood Rush, and this is a great way to start the game. So here we have Herald of Triumph coming down for 6. We do draw into a Super Popper, and if this ends Prism's turn, then we get to E-Strike for 8, bottoming Wild Ride, and Arsenal a Blood Rush Bellow. To me, that seems great. So we block with the Swing Big. We'll see if Prism has exactly a way to pay for Footsteps and then a follow-up Herald. She does. Unfortunately, we no longer have a popper, and we could cover this with equipment, but I don't love using all of our equipment this early. We could block with E-Strike and Sash, and then throw Wild Ride, and I think that's what I want to do. As much as I want to have this Blood Rush in Arsenal, I also know that we are very far ahead in this game, and the longer we keep Prism off of her Figments, 1, the more likely she is to draw them, and 2, the farther ahead we can get. At this point, we get to send Wild Ride for 7, make a Might on the back end. Prism could take that and try to convert 4 cards. Claw for 4, Arsenal, Wild Ride, probably the better line, honestly. I do think that is better. It's less damage overall, but we have more ways to pressure Prism with this Wild Ride in arsenal and trying to keep maybe not a 4-card hand, 5-card hand, but definitely a 4-card hand. So we can think about popping this Herald. Prism has a floating resource in order to pay for Phantasmal Footsteps and then follow up with a Herald. We could block with Fleshbag and Runner here if we wanted to really try and stop a follow-up. I don't know if we need to do that. I think just blocking with Runner is fine. We can put more blocks in front of the follow-up Herald. We still have another popper in Wrecker Romp. Celestial Reprimand, however, is going to allow this Herald to break through, as our Runner no longer triggers Phantasm. And Prism does get her Figment of War. She does get to flip, but that does end her turn, as she no longer has, I guess, another War Tomb Herald. She doesn't have a 1-resource play. So we're going to open up with Wild Ride. The advantage of doing this, despite the chance at discarding our Pulping or our blue, is that Prism may have a D-React in arsenal. We don't want to keep a 4-card hand and send a Pulping, only for it to get shut down by a Soul Shield. And we are interested in trying to clear Prism's board, keeping this Angel off, while also sending pressure. Unfortunately, drawing a red and discarding a blue means that our return is not going to be as impressive as it would be if we got to send a Claw as well. That said, we are going to send Command and Conquer here, rather than Pulping. We already made our Might this turn. I want to make Prism block me without knowing what's in the arsenal. Hopefully it's something like a Soul Shield, or this was awkward for her because she couldn't D-React. But as with any aggro race, we are more interested a lot of the time in disrupting our opponent rather than sending evasive damage. So we have a Herald of Triumph coming in for 7 with Go again. We do not have a Super Popper, so we will need to block this out in its entirety if we want to prevent the on-hit tutor. I am interested in doing that. Our hand is okay. If we wanted to just take 7 here and let Prism tutor, we could play Pulping, pitch Agile, hope to discard Beast Within. If we don't discard Beast Within, then we very likely have an E-Strike play, or we play Beast Within, or we pitch Beast Within to play whatever 2-cost red we drew from the Pulping. The only thing is that worth it? Is doing that worth the 11 points of value that Prism will get by hitting us for 7, then tutoring a Figment and flipping it with Rapture? The defensive line would be Beast Within, Bonebreaker, Scabskins. We would not make Might because we would not have a 6-power attack. Herald of Triumph would lower Beast Within's attack power, but we would stay at 37. Prism would not get her Figment. Our line would be E-Strike for 8, discard Agile Windup to make Might and Agility, and the downside of having blocked with so much armor is that our blocks on Herald of Erudition get a lot worse. Now, that being the case, knowing that our Prism has Goliath Gauntlet, is looking to set up this big Herald play, makes me think, you know what? Yeah, let's keep our armor healthy. We can let this hit and let Prism get her value, and on our turn, we just send big value of our own. I think keeping the armor healthy is important. But I disagree in the past, and we do see that the line is going to be 8 discard Windup. I think it's a valid line. I think staying at 37 is great. This I don't necessarily agree with. Setting up that 5-card sash with Pulping is nice. At the same time, we leave ourselves open to having this Pulping stuffed by a D-React, and I think it would be better to just have the Might and Agility. So we do see the 7 damage Herald of Erudition come down. There are a number of things we need to play against here, or we need to play around here. So we can block this with Send Packing, Flesh Bag, Bone Breaker, Scab Skins. We are so far ahead in this game that I can throw a lot of resources into trying to interrupt Prism's pivot turn. The way she gets around that is by having exactly Angelic Wrath plus Celestial Reprimand. It's pretty unlikely that she is able to do that, and at the same time, unless both of those are coming from her hand, she loses one of her cards to Flesh Bag. Yes, she draws 2 by hitting with Erudition. Maybe she has a good follow-up. Maybe she can flip an Angel, attack with the Angel, attack with a Herald from hand. It's all highly unlikely. I think what is more likely is that we block with Send Packing all of our equipment but Sash, and that kind of just ends her turn. That she can't do everything. She can't pay for Footsteps. She can't Reprimand and Angelic Wrath. For one thing, we haven't even seen an Angelic Wrath. We don't know if she's playing it. By blocking with Send Packing, we get a 3-cost 6 out of our hand, leaving a 2-cost 6 that does effectively the same thing. We can set up a Sash turn by playing Wild Ride for 1, pitching our Send Packing, then having Pulping at a potential 1-cost 6 as the follow-up finisher to that. So let's block with all of our equipment but Sash and Send Packing, and really just make Prism have so many things to keep this turn going. Herald of Protection as the follow-up, still pretty good. Do we want to let this hit, or do we put our CNC in front of it? Honestly, I don't mind putting the CNC in front of this, and why I want to do that is that we still have our Sash. So what we can do if the CNC pops the Herald is break Sash, play Wild Ride, pitch Smash Instinct, then play Pulping from Arsenal. We are pushing 12 damage, which takes 2 cards away from Prism in order to not die. We're still at 37. Prism still hasn't tutored Figment, so they are still in her deck, aside from Figment of War. And if we put Prism down to like 3, and she only has a 3-card hand to play with, we just take all of the damage. She cannot kill us from 37, even with all of her stuff. So I think popping this with CNC is the play. I agree. I believe breaking Sash is the play and just sending both of our cards. This I disagree with, though clearly it worked out. In hindsight, had we opened with Wild Ride, we would have drawn and discarded this Blood Rush Bellow and our turn would have ended. So clearly this was the correct play. At this point, we can either send Mandible Claw or Arsenal the Blood Rush. I think it's a pretty easy Arsenal for Blood Rush. Claw is not lethal. Prism is on 3 cards. We still have our Sash. We are in that position where we can just take all of her damage and crack back and kill her. We can't even prevent the Herald from, we can't pop it. We could put multiple cards in front of it, block with Clash and CNC, and then fire off Blood Rush and just hope that we draw into a blue. But I think we are perfectly happy to let Prism get her 10 points of value. Play Blood Rush by pitching our CNC. Hope we draw that blue and hope that we can pop off with Sash and go 3 wide and just end the game. Drawing into, keeping our pulping is a good start. Drawing into second Blood Rush is interesting. I think that breaking Sash to play pulping and pitching Blood Rush is better than playing second Blood Rush. Second Blood Rush, pitch, run Roughshod gives us 2 floating resources. We are guaranteed to keep a Pack Hunt or a pulping. We will draw 2 new cards. Potentially, we can go very wide. The problem with that is that we don't have agility. So if we discard our pulping and draw into, 2 more Pack Hunts, it's just an example, then the most we can do is Claw Pack Hunt. And I think that is worse than starting with pulping and going 3 wide. I think that 2 Blood Rushes for +4 each is going to be less valuable than 1 Blood Rush for 6 points. Yes, 2 times 4 is 8, which is more than 6, but I believe that going 3 wide is going to be much more effective at threatening Prism's life total than just going 2 wide. And you can see we do discard our pulping and are now in a position where, this turn is fine. We're going to Mandible Claw for 8, go again, followed by Pack Hunt for 10, Intimidate. We're threatening 18, we're intimidating a card away. It's going to be a good turn. I think it would have been better had we looked at something like Pulping Claw Pack Hunt. Bare minimum, we get to Arsenal and E-Strike at the end of this, and we still have our Sash. So we're certainly still very far ahead in this game, but I think there was a decent chance that we either end the game or entirely strip Prism's hand, whereas now we cannot. Pack Hunt for 10, Intimidate is still going to get a minimum of 2 cards away from her. That leaves her with 3 cards and 1 life point to play with. Yes, she still has Halo to potentially try and make something happen, but with only 1 card in her soul, she would get a Soraya activation, a Soraya attack, but we're at 31, we have a Super Popper. We are certainly chilling. We do have Soraya come down, burn the only card in soul to draw 2. There is no world in which we block the Soraya as the draw has already happened. And at this point we have a 5 power Herald of Triumph. Do we want to block this? I believe the answer is yes. Let's put a Swing Big in front of it just to make sure that Prism does not get another Figment, though at the same time, Prism has already flipped this turn using Empyrean Rapture, so another Figment would not immediately turn into an Angel. I do just think that blocking this with Swing Big is correct, and on our turn, we look to E-Strike for 5, go again, Clash of Agility for 6. Instead, blocking with 2 clashes, interesting decision to 1, make an agility, and 2, see that we have a blue on top of our deck. Means that while Prism does get to tutor a Figment because of the Angelic Wrath, it means that we get to E-Strike for 6, draw a card, bottoming Agile Windup to draw a blue, that lets us then Swing Big for 8. So still pushing big damage. Prism does have the option to pitch a blue to block with Phantasmal Footsteps and turn her Figment of Rebirth into a Sink Below. But, that is putting us into a position where we just strip the hand. And if we can put Prism into a position where we are constantly stripping her hand, then she never gets to do anything. Prism does live. She has to give us Soraya to do so. She loses the Footsteps. Yeah, she makes a Quicken, but that's fine. And here, we draw into our Smash Instinct. which is a Super Popper for the Herald of Triumph. On our turn, we get to send Riled Up for 5, take 2 cards out of Prism's hand, discard Agile Windup to make my Agility, and set up for the next turn. Our other line here doesn't really exist. I do think blocking with the Smash Instinct is the correct line. I was trying to think of how we could make a Sash play happen, but not something that we are capable of doing. Keep in mind too that Riled Up, when we discard this Agile Windup, becomes 6. If Prism puts herself into a position where she pitches a blue to turn Empyrean Rapture into Ward 1 and flips the Figment of Rebirth into Ward 4, we do get over the top of that. Now she blocks 6, so it doesn't matter, but there is a world where Prism attempts to turn 1 card into 5 block and gets punished for it. At the same time, we have 25 health, we have a full grip, and we get to just kill Prism. That said, this Herald hits, we go to 20, Prism gets a Figment, flips the Figment, has 4 resources available. What we could instead do is block with Smash Instinct, pop it, on our turn, break Sash, send Runner for 7 go again, then follow up with Wild Ride for 6, and put Prism into a position where we get her entire hand, plus Figment or Rapture. I think that's really good. What we do instead, by letting Herald hit, Prism fetches a Figment, gets to flip one into a sink below, we still break Sash and now send Runner for 7 go again, then follow up with Smash Instinct. We are threatening 14 points of damage. We take a card out of Prism's hand. She can, in theory, only block 13. So maybe that is just better. We send 13 either way. It is just a question of what did our life total stay at and how did Prism use her Figment. Now that all being said, I think this was the worst line. I think we should have blocked with Smash Instinct here. We're extremely far ahead. This decision really doesn't matter. I don't see a world where we lose this game, but there is a potential game state where the early game did not go as well for us, where Prism did really close this life gap, and now we need to care a lot about our decision making. And I think that this was worse for us. Just off the back of Prism having another Figment. Now that being said, we have an Agility, so we get to open up with Pack Hunt for 6 go again, follow up with Wild Ride, and very likely either end the game with Claw or run Roughshod. We're in a great position, we don't lose from here, but I think we could have gotten here faster, and at a certain point, that matters. So yes, Wild Ride will end the game. Run Roughshod as the follow-up if we needed it to be. That's the matchup. I understand why Prism players might choose Empyrean Rapture and a Herald plan, as Kayo is also good at breaking out of Arclight Sentinel loop because of Scabskin Leathers. But I don't think that Prism can go above rate enough to beat Kayo when Kayo has a deck that is over half comprised of poppers, and when Kayo does play a decent amount of super poppers for Triumph. Every Kayo deck will have 3 swing bigs at a bare minimum. On top of that, Red Smash Instinct and Red Agile Windup are not unheard of as sideboard tech for other matchups that end up coming into Prism just because why not? And that really punishes Prism, as we saw. We kept her from getting off the ground for so long while also chipping in so much damage that by the time she needed to go for it with a Halo play, she didn't have enough resources to pull it off. And We got there without gambler's gloves, and we got there with just patient defensive play. So I hope you learned something from this game. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, be sure to take that like button to Pound Town. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, a YouTube subscription is the second best free way to support me. The best way is to follow me on X. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a link to all of these social media accounts are in the video description below. Catch me next time for more daily FaB gameplay, and until then, take care.